Hey there, welcome to the Meeple Syrup Show. It is episode 119, and we are live today with our guests, Cecilia Hyland, Eric Hyland, Paul Tseng, and we're talking about graphic design in the tabletop industry. So we have two graphic designers with us and a spouse of a graphic designer, who's also happened to be a great game designer. So Eric's joined us to talk about actually some really important things, maybe even more important for most of our viewers than the actual graphic design stuff, because what he's going to tell us about is the basic design skills that Cecilia forced him to learn. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But first of all, can we introduce ourselves? We're going to start with Cecilia. Go ahead.
Hello, I'm Cecilia Hyland, and I work with my husband Eric Hyland, and I do the graphics portion where he does the mechanics portion. And I'm a not novice, but working up to. I've done several games now for us, graphic design wise.
Great. And what is your other job?
I actually work at the Game Crafter as a support person.
Okay.
So when you hit that support button, I'm one of the people who email you back.
Okay, great. And so a lot of our viewers are actually, Game Crafter aficionados. And so you might actually be talking to Cecilia, and that's awesome. Eric, tell us about yourself, sir.
Oh, I've been inadvertently designing games and not realizing what I was doing for several years, and then actually found out about the Game Crafter from Chris Leader at a Grand Con. And then that just led to a snowball of designing games, doing contests with the Game Crafter, which led us to getting our first game getting picked up by Passport. It's going to be released next year, Fleecing Olympus.
Fleecing Olympus, yes. I've played that at... Did I play that at Grand Con?
Yes, you did.
Yeah,
yes,
yeah. And that was like last year. So Grand Con, for those of you who don't know, takes place in Michigan, around the Grand Rapids area, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
September-ish.
Yeah, September-ish. And it is a really fun little con. So if you're in the Southern Ontario or Michigan area and you want to get your game on, Grand Con is a great place to go in mid to late September. Oh, hey, Paul, what's up, buddy?
Greetings.
What's
Quick
up
summary.
What's up with your face?
What's up with this?
Yeah.
Movember is happening.
Oh, yeah,
That's what's
November's
up.
happening. Yeah. So let us know who you are and what are you doing and why are you on this show?
I'm a graphic designer. I got into the tabletop world through Cards Against Humanity's Tabletop Deathmatch. I self-published a game called Outer Earth on Kickstarter. Now I work in the industry as a graphic designer for Renegade Games, and I work for a cafe called Snakes and Lattes, which is a board game cafe.
Right. And tell us all about your latte art, just because it's beautiful. What are you doing there?
It's beautiful, and I'm also competing in a competition on Sunday for latte art, so that's going to be interesting.
Yeah,
and,
is that just Canadian? Is it just Toronto? Is it?
It's Toronto, actually. It's at a cafe called Page One, and it's going to be a lot of top dogs just duking it out with latte art. It's a $2,000 prize on the first.
Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
that's awesome. Who else is going to be there that I know? Like, is Adam going to be there? And
no, he's not going to be there. But a lot of cool cats. A lot of cool cats. Yeah.
Have you heard about the diamond latte?
I have. Oh my god, is that even drinkable? I don't know.
I don't think it is. I think it's just.
Is that the one with
plastic.
the edible glitter?
Is
it?
Yeah,
I think so.
Like,
it's edible in the fact that you can eat gold. I think.
Fair
Interesting.
Good bowel movement.
Maybe expensive bowel movements, but okay. So less about bowel movements, more about graphic design. I'm going to ask on the feed if anybody has questions. Hey there, if you have any questions about graphic design, please let us know. So hopefully get some fans watching and asking you guys some questions. But let's start out with Cecilia. Cecilia, can you tell us what, in your mind, is the biggest, faux pas that game designers who aren't really versed well in graphic design make? What is the biggest mistake?
Biggest mistake, I would say, would be something along the lines of not accounting with, at least for the game crafter wise, for the drift that occurs, and they try to fill the entire card with as much information as they possibly can and leave no breathing room, and they're like all the things and the patterns and the textures and everything, and then it just all gets moved and they lose a whole bunch of information that they didn't intend to.
Okay, so can you explain to us what the concept of drift is, especially for a machined process like the Game Crafter?
Yeah, when it's printed, it prints out on the sheet, and then it's sent through a machine that automatically cuts the cards. And sometimes that can be a little off between the printing and the cutting. So while it's printed correctly, it might be cut a little bit off, or it might be printed a little bit off, but it's cut correctly and it can move. And a lot of times you can see like white lines if you don't fill the entire bleed of the picture.
Okay, and
Like,
so what
even-
is bleed? We're gonna go really
Really deep.
low, really deep here. Okay, so what is bleed?
Bleed is the color of your background beyond where the card is actually cut.
Okay. Okay, and so you need to fill that the bleed area in with color so that if the cutting shifts or the printing shifts, you're still going to have a full colored background. Yeah. Okay.
Like even Magic the Gathering has been known for this. There's an entire like Facebook page for Magic the Gathering miscuts and stuff that goes on. Like nobody's like able to not be subject to that.
Right. Nobody's immune from it, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and is that more of a process, a printing process issue? Is it a graphic design issue, or is it a combination of both?
It's a combination of the printing process, the cutting process, and whatever they loaded for the image. Because a lot of people will go, I want a black border like Magic the Gathering card, so they put a black border on it, but then it shifts to the left, you know, 1/8 of an inch.
And all of a sudden they have a white border.
And all of a sudden they have a semi-white border and like a line of black border.
Right, okay. And so what would you recommend to novice designers in terms of this problem, in terms of bleed and shifting and drift and all that kind of stuff? How do they accommodate for that?
He's showing a picture of something.
I got something to show over here. So this is
tiny
from Outer Earth. However, what I'm going to show is that on this chipboard part over here,
yes,
you extend the artwork beyond so that these, like the when you like punch it out, it's like nice and crisp around the edge over here. So this over here,
that's the bleed.
Yeah, that's the bleed. That extra part of artwork that you take beyond the die is the bleed, so that you get nice and crisp components.
Well, there goes your mint copy of Outer Earth that you could have.
It doesn't matter. It's worth it. Worth the podcast.
Worth it for the video. Yeah, great. Okay, so the bleed is that extra stuff that you're drawing around that extends the artwork beyond, so that when you do have the die cut or a card cut, you're going to have everything in there extended right to the edge the way you want it. And so from a graphic design process, the artist at the art end needs to take that into account. And since a lot of people are, desktop publishing and doing their own stuff, they really need to think about that. What does the game crafter have in terms of resources for budding graphic designers? So game designers who aren't graphic designers but are doing their own layout. Do they have any guides for that?
We have a couple of things actually that are really awesome. The first thing is on our site, every single component that we have has a template that you can download. It has the cut lines, the bleed lines, everywhere, so you can see exactly what will be safe for your image and what will be cut off. Another thing you can also use is our brand new thing called Component Studio, which will automatically show you this stuff, and you can load everything onto it and export it, even like as a PNP. And it has all the stuff loaded on there for you. It's a really cool program.
Right. Oh, yes. And so with Component Studio, it's a subscription fee, I believe. It's like $5 a month.
I think the first K coupon still works.
Okay. And the other thing that it does is that you don't actually have to use it at the Game Crafter.
No, it's totally separate.
Yeah. So you use it to make stuff, and you can print it out at home. But the beautiful thing about it is if you did want to use a Game Crafter, it integrates completely seamlessly, if I remember correctly, with the inventory system. Right?
Yep,
So
you can actually load everything straight onto your Game Crafter account into a new game.
Right, and that's nice and really, really great for that kind of thing. So Component Studio is what it's called, Cecilia? Okay, so if you are a budding game designer and you don't know nothing about graphic design, the Component Studio actually has like all the guides that you're going to need to get it from your head into what we call pre-press. And then from pre-press, then it goes to the printer and things like that. So you'll be able to do all that kind of stuff there. Now, a lot of other companies like Panda Games, they put out this really great manual over the last year about how to prepare your stuff for pre-press for them as well. So a lot of companies are recognizing that graphic designers, just regular old graphic designers, I'm not sure where Paul and Cecilia, you cut your teeth. It might have been advertising, it might have been magazines, it might have been something else. But game design has all these other things that are different than, say, traditional graphic design that you have to take in consideration. So a lot of people, they could do pre-press for an ad, but they had no idea how to set it up for a machine that had die cutting. So that's why Panda did that as well. So I think there's a real movement towards that. Paul, what do you say? What do you think is the biggest problem that you see when you get prototypes that you have to do the remainder of the graphic design on for things that come through Renegade's door? What do you see?
So I pretty much deal with a lot of very polished designs. However, when I go to Snakes and Latte's designer night, I see a lot of varying levels of prototypes. And to be honest, I do agree that adding too much to a component is an issue that Cecilia was talking about. But I also feel like understanding that there might be other components that might be better for your purposes. A lot of the times it's people who maybe only use a deck of cards or trying to slim it down a lot. And I feel like being a bit creative and thinking outside of the box to see if they can incorporate something a bit more unique and interesting is something that I would love to see more in game design and the up and coming budding game designers out there.
Probably a lot of Magic the Gathering layouts.
Yeah, a lot of copying and not a lot of innovation, I feel.
Okay, so what do you think could be innovative from a graphic design perspective in a new board game or card game or something like that? What would you be looking for, Paul? What would strike you?
I know that Mystic Vale did this not too long ago, but like even transparent cards where you can layer it on top of each other, or things that stack onto each other weirdly that make a unique gameplay method or way, or maybe even the way you're looking at it, or orientation, perspective. It's a lot of very abstract words that could make a game really interesting if it's implemented well. And I can't really say one thing that really blows it out of there, but I feel like when you see it, you'll go like, oh yeah, that's really cool. Like I played this game where you're flipping pancakes a long time ago, and it's just so creative to like take a chipboard component, like you cut it out as like a pan, and then you just flip these pancakes, which are cards, and then you have to like flip them once and place them down. It really takes something really generic, which is a kind of like a chipboard component, which is like heavy cardboard, and it makes it into something fun and physical. So
that should be the Meeple Syrup game. That's
it totally could be. Yeah,
that's all. That's
Let's figure out who owns that game.
All about pancakes. Did you see that in Toronto?
No, it was actually at Gen Con.
Oh, cool. Yeah. Neat. We'll have to look for it. So, Eric, I want to ask you, before we got on the air, I asked you about, graphic design and stuff like that, because you're really a game designer. But you said that your lovely wife had forced you to learn some of the basic skills of a graphic designer so she could focus on like the hardcore stuff. What were those things that she made you do?
It was
that sounds weird, but okay.
Well, it was because we had gone through a few of the contests, and there was a deck builder that I'd been working on for a while that I wanted to actually get printed onto a nicer prototype. And it had lots of cards that had a whole bunch of little minor details that had to be slightly altered every different card. And it was a lot of the monotonous graphic design work that she was just like, all right, here's your template. This is this. This is this. Don't do this. Save it like this. You have questions, I'm in the other room.
Okay.
And she left me to my own devices. So
and what
200 some odd cards later.
Yeah, right? Did it take you a long time to do? Did you learn from that experience?
I did. I had a few questions as it went along just to make sure I was saving things correctly. And she and I use GIMP.
Okay.
So GIMP has this little... it has a quirk to it where if you delete the beginning letter, it changes everything back to the default font, and it's so annoying because you get everything all going and then you delete, like you want to backspace the whole thing to change the name of something, but you can't do the last letter or it'll reset your whole font and font size. So you delete everything but the first letter.
That's weird.
Yeah, it's really weird.
I mean, I guess that's what you get for open source stuff, but
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you think they would have fixed that at some point? Oh well.
So it's just been something we've been working around.
Right.
But the thing that I get from it is it gives a game designer a completely new appreciation for what you're asking an artist to do.
Okay, cool.
Like, if I were to just go up to you, Sen, and say, "Hey, design me a board game," that's the extent of going up to an artist and say, "Draw me art for my game."
Right.
It's not that easy all the time. There's more work than people consider.
Okay, cool. That brings me to another question that I have for you guys. Cecilia, do you consider yourself an artist?
I consider myself more of an artist than a specifically graphic designer. Like, I started off artist, and then I've been working on the graphic design stuff and being able to lay out stuff and things.
Okay.
So I'm kind of like transitioning.
Did you start off in fine art or?
Pencil, paper, doing that sort of thing. No real degrees or anything like that, more than just, the passion to be able to draw things and all that kind of stuff.
Okay, and then graphic design is just a skill that you've picked up over time? Or...
Kind of acquired due to Eric's hobby.
Right? Yeah, okay. But you've always had an eye for that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Okay. And Paul, what about
like,
you? Yeah. And Paul, what about you? What do you think? Do you call
I'm
yourself
100% graphic designer. I don't do art. I do all layout, all pixel pushing, all like nitpicking, and just making it look good as a layout. No art.
No art.
Yeah.
And do people get confused when you tell them that you're a graphic designer and they say, "Oh, then you can draw"?
Yeah, they do. But I really set that hard line of, yeah, I'll do everything on the rule book, but the artwork. So you got to outsource that somewhere else, because I know that if I started doing art, it would take me way too long, and it's not a skill that I'm good at, really. I don't want to soak time and their money into something that I would do half-assed.
Yeah.
So I know
come on.
that
I mean, your little food things are cute. I like
yeah,
those
but
things that you
see,
push around.
that's not my artwork. That's
Oh!
my ex-girlfriend's artwork.
Oh,
so
okay. Was that something I
just-
should have talked about?
Nah, it's fine. It's fine.
Okay.
But yet again, yeah, I know where my strengths are, and everything but the artwork is the strengths.
Okay. Cool. Tell us about how you got to work for like one of the biggest up and coming game companies. How did Renegade hook up with you, and where is it leading you?
I actually got a mini referral from Christopher Chung. He said that the makers of Lantern.
Yes.
He said that they were hiring, and I was like, oh yeah, I'll just try and apply and see what's up. And that's how I got in. I know that with my self-published board game and my portfolio, I had a pretty solid kind of like just game design repertoire to like apply with, and it just worked out.
And where did you work in graphic design prior to doing graphic design in games?
Yeah, I did websites, branding. I worked for a 3D scanning company for a bit.
Oh, I remember that. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and it's just a lot of like weird skills, and then suddenly like everything comes together in board games, and I just feel like it's a really solid way to make a product and really have something physical by the end of it. So that's why I'm sticking around and having a good time.
Yeah. Now, are you doing you said that you work with some of the games, but you also told me that you're doing a lot of stuff with their marketing, their catalogs. Did you make the cool, the table giveaway stuff? You know, the tables that they gave away? Did you make the table skirts?
I did some skirts, yes, and I did the promotion for that, some coupons, and also the big like banners at some conventions.
I've seen all of those. Those are awesome.
And yeah, it's just like general marketing assets that they need to get printed for these conventions.
What about the giant dragon from Clank? Did you make that?
No, I did not make that.
Yeah, it's pretty cool. I saw Sarah making it. So it's not all glamorous, right? It's not all the board game. There's a lot of other stuff that goes into the graphic design assets that a company needs. Can you tell us about some of those other things and how you are involved with getting Renegade's product out to the stores or sold on the web or whatever? What other things are you involved in?
I make catalogs for them. So if retailers want to purchase games, they look through game catalogs by publishers, and that's something that I lay out and have to refresh every time. So I'm working on the new Winter 2018 catalog right now.
Okay, and is that digital or physical?
It's digital on my end, but I think they print it physically for the retailers.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So And also, like when you log into, let's say, BGG or some other like website where they have banner ads, it's a lot of
Right.
ad work and graphic design done for those parts of the world, as in the internet side.
Mhm.
And it's a lot of digital marketing, and yeah, it's just a lot of things. A lot of
Lots of things. Lots of things.
lots of things. If you see Renegade stuff and marketing, I was probably like somewhere behind the scenes making that.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. That's kind of cool. Can you tell us quickly what the difference is, Paul, between working on a physical product that people actually touch and move, like cards and boards and chits, and an ad or marketing stuff? What's the difference from a graphic design process?
Yeah, so depending on if the ad is printed or not, you still need to worry about the physicality of it. So let's say it's printed on a table, you still need to worry about where it cuts off, like the bleed. You also need to worry about coloring, about yet again the profile that you're using. But if it's all on computer, it's very simple. Like what you see is what the screen gives out, and usually the user gets. So it's
Mhm.
way more easy to choose things according to the gamma of the screen, and you don't need to worry about the physicality of it, how thick the stock is, what quality it is, what kind of core it is on the cards, how much you can fit on like a punch board when you're creating components. It's all about like efficiency and laying out things well, and it's just a whole different board game than just worrying about, yes, that looks pretty good, I'm
Okay.
gonna
And
say check.
how much say do you have as a graphic designer in things like component quality? Like, is this black core? Is this 300 GSM? What do
for
you get?
my for my personal game, I had all the control, but now I
Yeah, that
just
makes sense.
make,
That was
yeah, but
Renegade. What do you?
exactly, now I have zero control over that, which I don't mind. Like it's actually a lot of worry to think about, and like
Mm,
cost and nitpicking on like the amount of units that you're producing, and then seeing what the new cost will be by just changing the core or like culling some cards. And I know that from past experiences that it's just a lot of numbers that you need to juggle around and see if the price kind of works.
right. So you're like, just let
Yeah.
me do the art, man. Just let me do the graphic design.
Graphic design.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's actually refreshing to just do the graphic design. I like it.
Okay, cool. Cecilia, can you tell me about offers, not offers, but well, offers, but things. Trying to find the word in my head. Services. That's what I'm looking for. Services, other services that the game crafter offers that would benefit a person, a designer who isn't maybe necessarily super skilled in graphic design. What other things can they find through the community at the game crafter that would help them out?
Well, one thing that would really help, especially when it's really hard for like up and coming people who are making games, is to find like non-copyrighted stuff to be able to use. You
Hmm.
end up like in the stuff it's like before 1922 and things like that. A lot of people do, but the Game Crafter actually came out with design assets,
Right.
which is allows artists to post their stuff for people to actually go ahead and use at like low costs and at full being able to print them and all that kind of stuff. They can choose the licensing and all that. And these are items that they can use in making their games on the Game Crafter or wherever they plan on.
Oh, so they don't have to use it within the game crafter system. They just buy like a pack of icons for $5 and can use it anywhere.
Yeah. It's
Okay.
the artists are just licensing it for them to be able to use. That's it. Whatever they
Okay.
use it for is up to them. It's layouts, characters, icons. I mean, there's a ton of stuff on there.
Oh, even layouts, right? So
Yeah,
even
card
like
layouts.
card frames and whatnot.
Yeah,
Oh,
people,
neat.
lots of stuff.
And what formats do they come in?
They come in a bunch of different formats. It's really whatever the artist decides to load them as. They can load them as individual files, as a zip file, as Adobe Illustrator files, PNGs, JPEGs, whatever they decide to do.
Okay, so I'm looking up here.
Mhm.
I'm gonna screen share this, and you can walk me through this.
Okay,
All right, so we got screen one going on here. So here we are, game
there.
design assets, right?
Yep.
So if I was to say wanting to make a card,
Okay.
where would I go?
Up in the left is categories.
Okay. Yeah.
Somewhere in there it said card templates or something like that.
Yeah, there's 36 different ones apparently.
Yep.
So click on that.
So these will show you all of the templates that people have made. You can see the price that will be for these, and usually it's whatever people say it. It's just like when we make the game, when people make games at the Game Crafter. It's whatever they decide to put down. They show you preview images of what the cards will be able to look like, of the images they put up there.
Mm-hmm.
Also, it's not made by the Game Crafter. It's made by the people who are
the artists post there.
Okay.
Yeah. And
so
Paul's
it's
like, I could make some of those.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And support indie.
Right. So like, if you look at this one here, these card templates, right? You can get them in Photoshop, Adobe Illustrator, just a straight JPEG or PNG files. It says here illustrations not included, so you won't get this little gnome here, but you'd get like the card frame, and it's laid out so that it has text blocks where the card title should be, or where icons 2, 3, 4, and 5 should go, and things like that. So that's really kind of cool. And if you are a graphic designer in the game industry, like Paul,
you can make some money.
Yeah, how does that go? How does that work, Cecilia? How does that work?
You tell it the price that you want it to be, and Game Crafter just takes a cut. You can decide if you want, to load a whole bunch of just colors like this person did in the second row from the right, or if you want to just you can charge like 99 cents, or you can charge a whole bunch of money. There's my happy food friends. Second row on the left.
Right there. Are those yours?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. So so let's talk about these happy food friends. Paul, you like happy food friends too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Delish.
So here we go through all the happy food friends. And these would be like pieces of sushi and things like that people could then download and then use. And what license is this under? Is this like Creative Commons 0 or?
I believe it's just Creative Commons, commercial, whatever you need to do with it.
Oh, right, because you'd still have to pay. You still have to pay the $5 to license it. But once you do, then you can. A 0 would be no cost, right? Okay, so look, like you can get apples and bananas and carrots and stuff like that.
They're all in PNGs, so it's easy enough for people to be able to load to most design programs, at least for me.
And scalable and all that kind of stuff. Cool.
It's interesting that there's a lot of assets or like websites out there that do this asset kind of like licensing and stuff, but this is so specific to game design and templates for the Game Crafter, or even just self-publishing. It's
right.
It takes it and it really scales it down into like the board game industry. Like these are assets that you can use for the board game in your game. They're
meant to be used with, basically. Yeah, they're not just like an image. It's an image that works well with bright colors and all that kind of stuff, and wanting to be like on a fairly small image.
Okay, so let's look at this one here. This is like the quintessential thing that you need as a game designer is cubes, right? And so here, this is like, hey, get a cube. It's yellow, and you can have it with that I think has black stroke, you can't tell. And this one would have the white stroke around it. So not only does it give you the cube, it gives you a bunch of variants on the cube, and this is like 30 cents. And if you are a non-graphic designer but a game designer who really needs these assets, 30 cents is worth it, man.
I'm not going to lie. I would pay sometimes 30 cents for something quick and dirty like that. Like it does take like a good 5 minutes to just nicely craft something like that and make sure that it's to your specs. Yeah. But if you see it for 30 cents, just be like, okay, done, bye.
You can see the size in the upper left. So you know what size, what DPI it is, and all that kind of stuff.
It's a 500 by 500 pixel, 300 DPI PNG file.
It's convenience.
Right.
Sure.
So there's all that stuff there. So all the way from 30 cents all the way up to like $30 for
That's
these.
Some pretty cool images.
Yeah, these are a set of maidens for fantasy and historical games. I worked on these illustrations for a period of over a year, setting characters and concepts. So you have all these types of things, and you don't get this it's not a triptych because there's 6 things. It'd be a sextet, but you don't get that as that. You get them as individual files. So there's the Fall Maiden, the Night Maiden, the Dragon Maiden, the Viking Maiden, the Horacle Maiden, etc., right?
To get an artist to commission these images for you would probably be
more. I've paid so much more for an individual image.
Right.
Yeah.
So what you're losing when you're using this is uniqueness in a way that everybody has or has access to it. But I mean, I don't know a lot of people who would pay $30, but if you are the person who did, it would end up looking good. So that's
Yeah.
pretty cool, right? So there's a lot of really cool stuff at the Game Crafter in terms of these assets. What other types of stuff? I'm gonna stop screen sharing for now. What other types of stuff do we see at the Game Crafter, Cecilia, in terms of like tests? Like you said, art test and sanity test. Can
Yeah.
you explain what the art test is?
Art test is where you pay a certain amount of crafter points. I can't remember offhand what it is, but what it will do is it'll select randomly images from your game, like the backdrop, the logo, a card or two, and various images, and then it'll prompt in chat that, hey, I've done an art test. And people can go and say, hey, this looks good, this doesn't look good, this is functional, this is not functional. And then they can leave comments about the image. So they
Okay.
can, make suggestions or whatnot. A lot of times the people in chat are super helpful. And plus, doing the art test actually gives them crafter points.
Right. So explain crafter points. Eric, why don't you explain crafter points? Because I don't know anything about them. What are crafter points? What do you do? What do you do to gain them? What do you do to use them? And how does it benefit the community to have the game crafter community to have crafter points?
So crafter points are actually the on-site currency for the game crafter.
Mhm.
If you buy games on there, they also come with crafter points that are put on your account. If you, for whatever reason, had a refund, they usually can go back as crafter points if you don't want it as back onto your account, or however that works, Cece. I don't do refunds because I like what I buy. But the art test also gives you crafter points, and these crafter points can go towards things like they have there's promotional. They have these like one year they had a what is it, they call them bounties, or little things. It's kind of like a internal little Kickstarter, but only with crafter points, where you put in these crafter points to get this reward. And 2 years ago, our friend from from Pericles Games, KB, he bought us a table to show Policing Olympus at Gen Con at the Game Crafter with crafter points.
With crafter points.
Yeah, because he's purchased his own games so much that he had all these points just sitting there, and he's just like,
that's hilarious.
These guys are trying to get this. I don't need it. I'm not going to do it. So here's a whole crap ton of crafter points.
I hear that the community at the Game Crafter is super.
It is amazing.
Yeah.
It is like so helpful. If you don't know what you're doing game design wise or art wise or graphic design wise, and you get on that chat, somebody will direct you to somebody that knows how to give you some help.
Very cool. Eric, can you tell us about, so can you use the Game Crafter, the crafter points, can you use it to buy a sanity test?
I haven't done that myself. Cece, do you know if that can be?
Sanity tests are bought with crafter points, yeah.
Okay, and you earn points by participating as a respondent in art tests and sanity tests. Is that true as well?
Sanity tests are done by people that are set aside that are good at rules.
Oh, okay.
I know there's a few people that are on the back end that read through that. I don't think that's actually people in the actual chat, right, Cece?
Oh, okay.
I can't say I've met any of the sanity testers.
Okay.
But the art
I think I actually know a bunch of the sanity testers.
The art testers can be anybody that's on the community.
Right. And the other thing that I wanted to ask you guys. Oh, actually, I want to ask you a question from our chat. Antonio C asks a question for everyone. He says, are there any ways that graphic design has impacted or benefited your lives in ways that you previously were not expecting it to? What do you think, Paul? Has being a graphic designer benefited your life in a way that you weren't expecting it to?
To be honest, I chose graphic design as a occupation. I studied it, and I wasn't really sure what I was getting into, but it just opened up a whole new world of following your passions and just applying graphic design to it. So I feel like graphic design for me has become a outlet to just do whatever I want and really pursue it and try to make something out of it. So yet again, following my passion for coffee, following my passion for board games, all these things, it has a graphic design base, and then I just add on that passion. So it's for me, it has been an amazing journey and occupation to have. So.
Right. So tell us about the coffee thing again. What's going on there?
In a nutshell, I recently started doing workshops for just teaching coffee, and I'll soon be doing like a latte art workshop, but it's all about marketing myself as a coffee influencer. And
Is
yet
that
again,
a thing? That's a thing? Coffee
that
influencer?
you know what, that will become a thing once I get enough
What's you
clout.
doing? Okay, great. Yeah, yeah.
But there's a lot of people who do that for a living. They just kind of like do previews on products. Think about like a Instagram person who just does makeup, for example, and
Right,
just
yeah.
showcases it. It's
Mhm.
the same thing.
You
for
want to do that
coffee.
for coffee.
Yeah, and it needs, you need to be very savvy with graphic design and visuals and layout and have an eye for things. And I think that's a important aspect for a graphic designer to have, to
Right.
get a good taste of how things should look. Or
Right, because otherwise you're paying for somebody else to do that, right?
yeah, exactly. And for me, it became the natural step to just really follow whatever you wanted to do after the graphic design
Right.
gates.
Cecilia, what about you? How has graphic design changed your lives in ways that you weren't expecting it to?
Well, besides having a game published, it's allowed me to indulge in my like gypsiness of wanting to like travel around, because we go to a lot of conventions, Proto
Right.
Spiels, Gen Con, Origins, and stuff, where I'm like, eventually I want to get like a van and convert it and go to a whole bunch more conventions.
We have talked about a Meeple syrup bus where we would drive around and pick up designers on the way to different conventions. We design games in the bus, and then we drop people off at the convention, and then we drive back.
That's
That sounds
awesome.
amazing.
I don't know
I
if we'll
would,
ever.
I would be on it.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, that bus.
Well, yeah, you guys are not far from us at all. We just drive across the bridge and pick you up and
Oh yeah, it'll be
head
simple.
down to go get John in Ohio and whatever, right? So
It'll be great. We'll just make like a round trip.
yeah, it'd be fun. So we have to think about. I think that's a really neat idea. Eric, I know you're not really a graphic designer, but how has graphic design changed your life?
Well, when I had first learned about the Game Crafter, I was like, cool, I can make games. I am not an artist, and I have no idea what I'm doing graphic design wise. And then Cece's like, well, I can kind of do art. So she started teaching herself some more graphic design, and it started leading into now I can actually take the idea in my head and turn it into a realized product.
Mm-hmm.
This is really cool. Now there's nothing standing in my way, and I don't have to throw a ton of money at the problem to get to an end state game.
Yes, you are very beneficial in the fact that I live in the same house as you.
Right? Yeah.
Good
That's a
choices.
benefit. But I like the word you used there, Eric. You said the word product, and I want to bring that back to the rest of the panel. So my question to you is, is when we make a game, I view it as curating an experience. Do you guys think of it as graphic designers more as a product or an experience? What do you think, Paul? Product or experience?
When I'm designing a game, yes, it's all about the experience and how they will interact with the game and the mechanics. But as a graphic designer, I just feel like it's more of a product. You're a bit more distant from really what the game is intended to do and what its purpose is. You don't really know exactly what you're trying to convey. So you don't have that, I guess, knowledge to fall back on to then tweak it back in again with the graphic design. So as a game designer, yes, you are curating an experience, but as a graphic designer, you're just making sure that everything is legible, easy to understand and read and really take in, and you're just trying to curate that to the best of its abilities.
Right. So more about the product's usability than about the experience they're having. You're hoping the experience is taken care of by the designer.
Yes.
The game, right? And the graphic designer then says, okay, now here's a product that looks good on the table, looks good in the hands of the users, plays well from a physicality standpoint. Okay. Yeah. Cecilia, what kind of arguments, not arguments, but have you ever butted heads with Eric about how to depict things graphically?
He's running away.
Yeah, when you have graphic design, comments about things. Yeah, discrepancies or differences in opinion. How's that?
Most of the time he's just happy he has something shiny.
Right.
I will say it's interesting from my point of view versus yours, Paul's, is the fact that because I'm part of the design process, I understand the mechanics of the game in depth. There's been a few games that I've done outside of the ones that we've actually created where I've been in that loop of outside of, knowing exactly what the game does and where you're just making the images. So it's interesting to see it from both sides. I find myself tweaking things a lot more when it's our own game, deciding things like that. But most of the time when me and Eric have look at images and try to figure out what we're going to do, it's usually just a discussion back and forth because I've designed things between us in ways that I know I can tweak things really easy.
Okay. So you built yourself some back doors that you can use to like change layouts and things like that.
She says easy, but there's been times where I just like, oh, it'd be really cool if we did this. And then she just kind of looks up from her computer and goes, then I'd have to redo all of this. And I was just like, we can wait on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think as you get more skilled as well, you're going to learn some tricks, right? And some ways to make that easier. Paul, what's your number one trick, graphic design wise, when you're doing like layout or whatever? What's something that you do that you don't know if anybody else does that you found that makes your workflow faster?
Automation.
Okay.
Figure out how to automate things.
What kind of automation are we talking about? Are we talking about like importing a CSV into?
Sure, yeah, CSV numbers, putting it into like an InDesign and having the number always reflect and kind of like refresh according to the CSV. Photo editing. If you need to edit more than like 5 photos, make a script for it in Photoshop and just go through it. And yet again, just learning those basic skills of how to like set up a script will save you like tons of time back like as you go, because the script can like automatically bring you up to the levels of each image and you just like tweak it and then you press next and then it goes to the next image and it comes up like the level part again and you just tweak it again, save. And instead of opening every image, opening the levels, tweaking it, pressing save, saving it to a location, it just automatically brings you to the level point and it allows you to tweak it there. So time saving, yeah. Find out ways to save time.
Right. So when you build a script like that, Paul, is that a script that you can then use with lots of other images? Like you can save it in a little toolbox for you? Yeah,
you can just make script files in Photoshop, and I would say make scripts according to what purpose you need it to. So sometimes you need to like save images down, and yet again, it's just the easy thing as like you do the action, you physically do it for one image and you record your actions. And then you just say, oh yeah, when it wants to save down, I just want to be able to manipulate this part manually. And then you check that off and then you run, let's say, a folder of images through that script. And each time it asks you to save it down, you can maybe crop it a bit differently or like tweak it to a different size. And you just don't need to like individually open every image, individually like save it. It just does it for you. And it's
and eventually, I mean, you could batch process whole bunches of things, right?
Yeah, 200 images.
If you want to watermark everything with a particular copyright symbol in the bottom left-hand corner, you don't have to write that every time or even copy and paste it. Just batch that, right?
Yeah, so figure out a way to batch things, because in prototyping and game design, you're gonna like do a lot of things a lot of the time, and it's gonna be a repetitive action, like putting things in places or like something that could be maybe batch done.
Cecilia, what about you? What's your trick that you've learned over the last little while in graphic design that has helped you improve your workflow?
Well, tying to Paul's would be that I need to use Component Studio more often because it does exactly what he just said.
Go ahead.
Where you can upload your images and upload all the data into a spreadsheet of what you want each card to say, and then you can manipulate individual aspects of those cards and it will change everything across the entire span of your set of things.
Right.
So you don't have to change everything individually. It's all its own, what's the word I'm looking for? I'm not a programmer, so it makes it pretty difficult. I wish I could write crazy scripts and be able to do that. But yeah, no, definitely learning that would be my biggest thing right now. But it allows you to do exactly what you said, Paul, which is change a whole bunch of stuff at once versus going through each and every one. But probably for me, the biggest thing that saves me time is making sure with whoever I'm talking to, I've gotten a whole bunch of images that they've, you know, a lot of the times like commission artwork, like drawing and actually making artwork versus graphic design, is getting basically as much as I can into their brain and making them give me as many images as they can think of for what they want. Like, I'll be like, make a Pinterest board and put everything on it that you want that's kind of like this image that you want from me.
Right, so like a mood board or something.
Yeah, kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay. Eric, what about you? What's the number one graphic design skill you think you've earned over the little last while in the last year or two?
It's gonna sound dumb.
Nope.
But save every few minutes.
No, that's perfect.
Because there's been times, even in video editing or any type of thing that I've done, especially with the graphic design, when I was going through that deck builder, I got a whole bunch of cards done. Something got screwed up somewhere along the way, and I didn't save, and I had to start over. And it is so frustrating when you are doing that monotonous type of work where you're just little symbol here, little symbol there, and then, oh, I got to do all of that again.
Right. And I guess that's another thing about scripts too, right, Paul? Like if you know something fails and you didn't save those 200 things, running a script and letting it sit for like the 10 minutes it takes to do it is a lot less labor intensive than moving that icon over 6 pixels on every card, and you have 600 cards, right?
But Eric brings in a good point that sometimes you just can't use a script. You have to go into it manually and really position things, icons or something in a very specific way or fashion that a script cannot do. So yeah, it is easier when the script works and you've made something really good, but sometimes you need to go in there with your own eyes and really tweak it in a manual fashion. And that's just what you got to do.
Hey, I wanted to ask you, Paul, because I don't think Eric and Cecilia have done a Kickstarter yet, but you've run a Kickstarter yourself, right, Paul? You did all the graphic design for the Kickstarter page.
Yes.
What is involved? Because I know I didn't do mine. We let Josh do it because Josh is ridiculous. But what's involved? How long does it take? And it looks like a lot more. It's a lot more. I think it's a lot more than it looks like on the screen. There's a lot more magic that goes on behind the screens than you see when you open a Kickstarter page. And so when we're looking at something like one of Gavin's Kickstarters, like for Brass or Steampunk Rally, and there's like animated GIFs, whatever, and there's all those things going on that look great, but seem so simple. How much work is it really?
It's tons of work. So just if you open any Kickstarter page, you'll see a awesome video, hopefully. Yet again, you need videography, you need audio, you need video, you need actors, you need maybe animations like After Effects to have these small animations go into the video, yada yada. And this is just the first thing that you're seeing. And then scrolling down, you see yet again the GIFs or the banners and all of these pledge levels, and always updating them as in, yeah, stretch goal unlocked. So you need someone on deck all the time that actually looks at the number, adds in that change, and makes sure that, yet again, things are updated and good to go. And you need to have constant updates throughout your campaign to make sure that your backers are, yet again, like satisfied with what you're doing and new developments that are happening, maybe competitions or other small changes in the campaign. Maybe the card stock or something just didn't work out, and then you have to like really bring it to the backers as a bad news, or maybe it got upgraded, so it's good news, you know. And beyond the Kickstarter page, it's like ads, you know, BGG, Kick Tracker, or like, yet again, it's just all these things like, yes, where am I going to advertise? Do I need any previews like the Dice Tower? Am I going to pay for that? Then do I need to send them a copy? So yet again, that is a part of the Kickstarter that you don't really think about, but every time you see a game and that they have like all these previews of the game, they had to send them a copy. They had to talk to them, and they had to probably have a paid review for that Kickstarter game, and
Yeah.
it's just a lot of back end work that, yet again, a designer or a graphic designer or artist don't really think about, but it is a part of just running a
Right.
Kickstarter.
And so, how much of that is a graphic designer's responsibility, or what components of that are graphic designers involved in? Would you say? I know, like, so making the banners, that's pretty obvious. Probably even, helping out getting the prototype ready. There might be a graphic designer involved in that. But what else is there that, like you said, like when stretch goals get unlocked?
It really depends, because the graphic designer can pre-make all of these assets and just tell the Kickstarter like admin person like, oh yeah, when this unlocks, just upload pledge level O2 and then change that. So yet
Right.
again, the designer still needs to make those changes to the assets and export that image so that they can just easily upload it and have that ready when that time comes.
Okay.
But yet again, it's not something a lot of people think about, but whenever something just changes visually and it's not text, it's an image and something is happening, and it's the graphic designer that needs to make that thing happen.
Right. So creation of assets is a big deal.
Yeah, I would want a lot of assets ready to go when I hit them. I don't want to make them as I complete them throughout the Kickstarter, for sure.
Right.
So it's like, okay, let's just prep everything, upload it to like Dropbox, make sure that everyone has this shared like view of it. And if I get sick, you know where it is. Okay, here you go.
Right.
Let's go.
So have you done the graphic design for other people's campaigns?
No, I haven't. I've only worked on other board games and their graphic design assets,
Right.
so not Kickstarters.
Right, because Renegade doesn't kickstart, right? So
no, they don't.
yeah. So if you were, how much would you charge for something like a big campaign? Is that a lot of work for you? Like when you ran your own, was it a lot of work doing the graphic?
It was a lot of work, but I think the video was the most work because you really have to tweak that properly. I think the assets were actually pretty easy.
Right.
So maybe if you were asking for just like banners and some basic GIFs and animations, like $200 to $500, depending on how complicated you're looking at like the banners to be. Like if it's just like a nice like flair with your artwork, like the game's artwork, and maybe like some kind of like sprinkles and here and there, it's not too crazy to just complete a whole campaign and be like, okay, here you go.
Yeah, so you can make it
changes.
Yeah, you can make that pretty turnkey though, right? So and are flares and sprinkles, are those technical terms like bleed and drift?
No, I think it's more like, oh yeah, this game is like a mecha game. Let's put some cogs and like other things there. And yeah, it's actually not such a turnkey thing on the graphic designer's end, because they need to look at the game and they need to be like, okay, I need to make a header for this game over here. How do I add the flavor of the game into the header?
Well, you just find generic fantasy header 3. And on the next one, you do generic fantasy header 4.
Eric actually has a lot of video stuff.
I would be rich.
Yeah, right?
Yeah. No, you can upload all those to the design assets, and then they can just find them there.
Royalties forever.
Well, that'd be interesting, right? I mean, are there Kickstarter assets or banners and stuff like that on the game design assets? Probably not. And I don't know if that's actually a legit thing. Well,
Paul,
I mean,
go do it.
Yeah, if you did it and you could give them areas to write their own text in, right? That'd be cool.
I think
layers are your best friends.
It needs to be unique for a game. Like, yet again, you need to really take the banner into account and be like, okay, the game needs to be somehow like sprinkled into this banner. How do I make it seem like I'm looking at the banner and it's like an elven, like forestry, like yada yada.
Oh,
like
that's what you meant by sprinkled. I thought you were like literally talking like sprinkles that you have on a donut.
No.
No?
Must be like glitter.
Or glitter everywhere, glitter bombs. Cool. Anything else that we need to talk about? So we talked about, Eric, you talked about the game that's coming out from Passport, right? So tell us about it just a little bit more in detail. Like, what's it about? What type of game is it? You can tell us that in the last couple of minutes, and we'll get to our last question. Yeah.
So Fleecing Olympus is a real-time card play game where the biggest part of the game is actually negotiation. where bribery and extortion is completely encouraged and can be done at any point in time of the game, even when it's not your turn.
Right.
So everybody has a hand of cards, 5 cards. You draw back up to 5 cards at the end of every round. And when it's your active turn, you are going to pick somebody at the table beside yourself, and you're going to roll the dice. That's after using your special God power, which allows you to bend and break the rules just for you.
Because you're gods.
Because you're
Right.
gods.
Why not, right?
Hades isn't going to play fair. So after you do your power, you roll against the other player, and if your power was your odd power, then if the dice rolled odd as the sum, the other player owes you the higher die in gems. If you were incorrect and you rolled an even number, then you would owe them your lower die in gems.
Oh, yeah, now I remember.
Yes.
I remember. Yeah, this is fun.
And
And then the chaos that happens after
and
that.
now this
Yeah.
is where the chaos hits, because anybody can play cards at any point in time. Your first card's free. Every card after that is 1 gem to play a card, and those gems go into a center bank, which other cards can manipulate. But you can be going, I've got this card that's going to screw up your day. You give me 3 gems or I'm going to play it.
Mhm.
Or you play a card and then go, I got another card, 3 gems, I'll fix it.
Right.
You just put them in that situation, and it just goes around and around. I believe right now we're at 2 times around the table, count up gems, see who wins. And something that's changed in the game since you played it is we actually are putting, I believe we're putting screens in front of the gems now.
Yes, that's a good idea. I think that's a great idea.
It actually took the math out of the game, because I know people that were very heavy Euro type gamers are going,
Yeah, they'd count.
who's got the most gems? Who's got the most gems? And it just detracted from the chaos and the fun of the game. So
Yeah.
now it's more of that, who's got who paid
Who I
who?
think has a little bit more than me, right?
And they're just like, no, I don't have a lot of gems. Go after Joe over there, because he's got more gems, and you're sitting on this massive pile. You convince him
Mhm.
otherwise.
I get it. Cool. Paul, are you going to ever design another game that gets published?
Yeah,
Published?
I have something in the pipelines.
Oh, yeah?
I'm kind of excited for it. You've played it. It's tough for sliders, but I have so many different changes for it, and it's becoming a co-op, and it's becoming like this fast food, all you can eat, chefs working together and trying to like calm down the crowds and feed them all. So it's really changing the way I'm taking this game, but it's still like the same like tile placement / pushing and
Okay,
shape
interesting.
creation. It's changing. I'm not rushing it. I'm just taking my time.
All right. So I better talk to Jay, because we're working on a game that sounds very similar.
Oh man.
Like literally, like you and I and Jay need to talk at some point. But yeah.
Is this the year of fast food game?
No, well, it's for a license. But we were working on an idea where, okay, let's push tiles out of a grid. And use dice to tell me where I can go, what I can do, how far I can move, and what piece I can pick out, and things like that. And that was Jay's idea, and Jay has never played your game. And then now that you just said, it's like, oh shite.
Well,
That is very similar to Paul's idea. And now that it comes in the fast food area, it's like, oh no.
Oh no.
Because I'll talk to you offline about what the thing is. So, yeah. But we might need to figure something else out.
I also
Go
just want to
ahead.
put in a mini shout out to Lazy Wolf Games, as in they are doing a Kickstarter for Prey Care right now, and there are some cool peeps in Toronto that are creating a game, and it's a family-friendly game on Kickstarter right now that should totally be checked out if you're into that. So
Did you do any of the work on it?
no, I didn't, but
Oh,
I'm just
get your
friends
card-
with the
Get your
people
card
who
down.
are doing it, so
Yeah.
I'm just like, just gotta give them a mini shout out.
Yeah. And Cecilia, any last words of advice from you to people who want to maybe get into the industry as a graphic designer?
Never stop making art or trying to make things. I mean, it's like the Inktober thing. So long as you practice every day, you're going to get better.
Right. And what tools of the trade would you recommend for somebody who's just starting out?
Just starting out, like I use GIMP, which is a free program. It's got like similarities to Photoshop without the subscription fee.
Right.
And it's I think it's fairly easy to get into. Other people, I've also heard that one called like Critter's pretty easy. It's an also open source one,
I've
and
never
it's
heard
just
of that one. Cool.
yeah, it's something I saw like on a YouTube video a while ago. But just keep doing stuff.
Right. Paul, can you tell me what tools you're using right now?
I pay for the Adobe Suite, and
Yeah.
it's because I need to really have the same, I guess, system and platform as the people that I work with, and it's
Right.
just a great platform in general. I know it is a bit expensive, but maybe get the older editions that aren't on a subscription based, and
Oh
really
yeah. You
go
could
with
get
that.
you could get like CS6, I think.
6, yeah,
The
for
last
a
subscription, yeah.
flat fee, or you can like find it online somewhere. I didn't tell you anything, but
Yeah.
Magical.
Yeah. Okay. And out of the suite, what are the tools that you use most? Photoshop, InDesign, what?
uh,
Illustrator?
so I would say for creation of rule books and physical like cards and assets, it's actually InDesign, and then
Yeah.
you bring Illustrator and Photoshop and place assets into InDesign. So it's like Illustrator for vector, Photoshop for pixels, and then you bring those together into InDesign for
Right.
publishing slash file creation for print.
Right. Okay. So, uh, let me get this right. So, vector assets in Illustrator,
Mhm.
photo type images and manipulation of that stuff for Photoshop. Bring all those assets that you create in those two programs, icons, images, whatever, into the layout program of InDesign, and
Mhm.
that will allow you to spit out the stuff that's print ready.
Exactly.
Okay, I got it now. See, these are I'm learning. I'm learning. Okay, great.
Education.
Yeah, and I think like we use a couple other programs. So we use CorelDRAW, which is basically the Corel version of Illustrator, to do the vector stuff. What else? Jesse has been using Is it Inkscape?
Inkscape, yeah.
Inkscape, which is sort of a paint program, I guess. So there's really three different types of artsy type well, four different types of artsy type things, right? There's like vector, image, or whatever, pixel, the layout programs, and then there's also that like realistic art media type stuff. Do you use anything for that, Paul?
Photoshop could be that if you set the brushes up and
Right, with the brush
like,
tools, right?
yeah.
Okay.
But no, I'm actually not familiar with a lot of the creating art on like on the computer. However, my artist for Outer Earth, he did everything in Photoshop, and it was all about it again, different brush tools and
Hmm.
layers and like just kind of like painting on top of things. And yeah, Photoshop is the tool that you should be using in the Adobe Suite if you want to create artwork.
Right. And I know there's a couple people who are using like Manga Studio X and stuff like that. So there's lots of tools out there. So depending, I think, on your style, your tool of preference, like if you're a traditional artist who likes working with traditional media and then scan it in, that's different than somebody who's going to be using a digital stylus. That's different than somebody who's going to be using point and click mouse work. So there's a lot of different tools out there. But hey, it is exactly, well, it's not exactly, it's a little bit after 11. So we're going to get going, but I would like to thank my guests, Cecilia Hyland, Eric Hyland, and Paul Tseng for coming on to the show, Meeple Syrup, and talking about graphic design and how it influences how we design games. So thanks so much for coming, and thanks to all the viewers out there who are watching. Again, if you have questions, please do ask them in the feed next time. Just quickly before we go, I need to find something else. Where's season 4? Season 4, there it is. I need to tell people what's happening next week. Oh wow, next week's going to be interesting. So next week is November 29th. And November 29th, we're going to have my good friends, Maggie Cottrell and Jamie Boucher, who are with PSI and not GameWire, but yeah, GameWire-ish stuff. Talking about market penetration, distribution, marketing, all
Ooh.
that kind of stuff next
Very
week.
cool.
So if you're into that, we're going to be looking a little bit about how do games get from publishers to stores and what happens in between that with product placement, distribution, all that type of stuff, and what these services can offer you as a game publisher and as a game designer who might be self-publishing. All right, so we'll see you all next week. Thanks once again to our guests Cecilia and Eric Hyland and Paul Tseng for coming on the show and talking to us about graphic design. We'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye bye.